back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today, John McClain joins us. John and I go way back. He's a longtime listener of the show, and you can trust me, he is one of those hashtag smart guys. This is John's second time on the podcast, and you can find his first episode, number 472, in the archives and in the show notes. In that show, we talked about the critical tools and systems that John uses in order to run his interior design firm coast to coast. Okay, it was a terrifically informative episode, and I am really happy to have John back on the show today because you know me, I love a good conversation about system and process. But what we're about to find out is there is much more to John's story. Okay, now John is an accomplished interior designer, business coach, speaker, and writer. He is the owner of John McClain Designs with offices in both Central Florida and Los Angeles. Right now, he is celebrating the recent debut of his book, The Designer Within. And congratulations, John, really. This is not your average coffee table book, although it does look great on display. It is a beautifully put together book, but it is also a resource and a roadmap directing you through the design process from the perspective of a professional. It's, John explains, it's mostly geared towards the homeowner, but I found reading it, you pick up some tips along the way, right? Now, publishing a book might seem like the pinnacle of success, right? But believe it or not, John has been down some tough roads to get to where he is. And that's what he's here to talk about today. Look, we all make mistakes in our business at some point, and usually at more than one point. But you can't crawl under the covers and not get up and try again. So like you, I haven't heard John's story as of yet, but where he is now with his business and with his new book makes me think he took whatever that failure was and pushed through it, turning it into a positive. So, John, you had me at hello. Can't wait to hear the story. Hey, John, thanks so much for coming back to A Well-Designed Business.
Hey, LuAnn, I'm so happy to be here. Got lots of stuff to talk about today.
I know, right? I'm excited to have you back on the show. It's been, what did you call it? How did you say that it's like not
I
BC.
said BP, before pandemic.
Right. Right, before pandemic, since you were on the show. But of course, we see each other at High Point and the different markets. And I'm so glad to have you back on the show again. And you impressed me the first time with the way you run your business. And that just always left an impression on me. But here's the thing that I learned recently. I did not know that you too have a dark night of the soul story, like our beloved Sandra Funk. I had no idea. I mean, literally thousands of designers have this. I mean, this is not like, oh, you're a lunatic if you have this, come to Jesus moment. But I didn't know you had one. And I actually don't know what the story is. So I'm excited. Would you share that with us today?
Yeah, and it's so funny. Well, first of all, I'm an open book. I say everything that I feel, which is probably to my detriment, but it happens anyway. So this is just what it is. And I know you are too. But yeah, I literally had this moment in my career, and it's something that I just have been able to talk about recently because it frankly was so devastating and so horrible that it almost cost me, my business, my marriage, frankly, was on the line. Like so many things were hinging on this horrible experience. But essentially, it is revolving around a client that I really, really trusted. And I was working with this client and we were ordering all the things and I was designing lots of custom furniture for this person. And it was a 20,000 square foot home. And, they were flying me to different parts of the country to help them choose their second and third homes. And I'm like, wow, this is great. And then the client also was like, John, I don't want to be bothered with all the financials. Like, well, all right, flag number one.
Right.
And then, so just take my credit card, charge anything whenever you want to do it. I trust you 100%. And so dumb John did not have an agreement. Dumb John did not have any systems and processes in place. I had no order to my company at all, other than the fact that I was trying to do the best job that I could. And I was focused more on the design aspect versus the business aspect of it. And that was, problem number one. But one day I'm driving down the road innocently, probably for this client to pick up something, I'm sure. And I did a phone call, and this person is berating me, cursing me, saying words that would make sailors blush. I mean, literally the most horrible things imaginable. And I'm like, what is going on? What are you talking about? So I don't know what was going on, if there was a mental struggle with this person or what, but they were saying, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you for everything you have, which little did they know I didn't have that much at the time. So, but I'm going to sue. And, when you're young and you are just starting out with your own business, when someone says they're going to sue you, you sort of pee your pants a bit, right? You're like, yes. Oh my God, like this is bad. And it did come to that. And so, long story short, I was returning everything. I'm begging vendors to please don't charge the restocking fee, and taking everything back that I could to salvage as much money from this as I could. Because remember, again, I had no written agreement. I had, and my attorney that I had no money to pay to hire. I had to hire this attorney, was, telling me like, you really don't have that much of a leg to stand on with this. But the funny part was, this person still wanted all of the custom furniture that I had designed for them.
Wow.
And so they were wanting everything because they had this massive home that they needed to be filled. And honestly, the design was damn good. It was a really beautiful design, and I was really happy with what we had done. And that was the part too that I was struggling with. But long story short, again, my attorney, I basically pulled together every single thing that was left in this situation with this client, and had all the furniture ready to go. Let me tell you one little caveat. The day before we were going to set up one delivery of the furniture, the day before, the factory, yes, get ready for this, the factory that had made all of my custom furniture burned to the ground. Burned to the ground.
Oh my goodness.
The owner, LuAnn, the owner calls me crying and says, John, I'm standing outside of my factory. All of your items are inside of it, which was about 40 pieces, sofas, chairs, tables, everything. They're all burning inside. And I said, you're joking, right? You're joking. And they were like, no. No. And he had no insurance on his company.
Oh my God. God. How do you not
so the lowest went went much lower at that point. I can laugh now. I was, again, crying at the time, but I was like, okay, so I have to regroup and make an entirely new plan. So all those pieces, thankfully this person at the factory decided to help me, recoup some of that. And so they rebuilt all the pieces, which delayed the process another, 2-3 months from that point. So they were using a temporary factory and making all their things. And so that was another lesson learned, make sure that your furniture manufacturers that you use have insurance to take care of you when there is a problem.
Oh my gosh.
Fast forward to the point where this client still wanted all the things. So my attorney said, John, I really don't feel comfortable in you going there and bringing these pieces on your own. So here's how it played out. So I pull up in my car, the moving trucks, 3 of them pull up. And then the third car to pull up was my armed security guard.
Oh my God.
Not joking. Oh, because this person had their own armed security guard with them. I had my armed security guard with me. We brought all the furniture into the home. I documented everything. And by the way, this was not John making profit at this point. This was the agreement that we worked out with just to get this over with, was that they simply had to pay what I paid for it. So they were paying my cost at everything. So there was no profit. I was literally losing my shirt over this. And then at the end of that delivery, all of the furniture was in, I documented, and the person turns to me, the client, and says, John, I really don't know how this got to this point. And I stopped and I was like, I know exactly how it got to this point. And I left it at that. And I got in my car, and then I started driving down the road, LuAnn, and, one tear came and two tears came. And before I knew it, I was a bawling, squalling mess on the side of the road. And I let it all out. And then from that moment, I dried my tears, and I told myself, this will never happen to you again. Right. And you will never put yourself into this compromised position to lose almost everything that you have. And literally, I mean, from that moment on, I had a 2-hour drive back to my house. In that 2-hour drive, I laid out everything that I was going to start working on with my company, and it's been uphill ever since in a great way. So it was horrible, but turned out to be a good situation too.
Well, a couple things. Number one, I just have to acknowledge, you're telling the story. It's hindsight. You're through the pain of it, and you're telling it in sort of a light way. But you've mentioned a couple of times on the bathroom floor crying in the car. This is not to be underestimated, what you went through. I mean, this is a really traumatic thing. When you say things like it affected your marriage, it affected your business, it affected the way like, I just have to say, high five to you for standing up, because really, and then to have that 2-hour ride, because some people would take the 2-hour ride and get in bed for a month or a year. That's the truth. And just give up and not know what to do. And other people stand up. And it's like, John, I say on the show all the time, we're going to make mistakes, but how do we handle them?
Yes.
There are failures. People ask me all the time, every time I'm on another podcast, like, what's your failure? I'm like, I don't know. Because to me, yeah, okay, that's a failure. But you know what? If you didn't do that, if that didn't happen, if you didn't allow yourself to be in that situation, you wouldn't be where you are now with a luxury firm, multi-city, a book written, business courses for interior designers. What happens is, if you had just gotten away with doing it without systems, without contracts, without agreements, you could have gotten away with doing it for another 20 years, and you wouldn't be nearly as solvent and successful as you are at this point, right?
I mean, thank you. And yes, I absolutely agree with you. Every business decision that I made from that point onward reflected back to that horrible situation. So everything that I do and did and do now reflects back to that situation. And I kind of use that as my compass, frankly, for my agreements. I have a 22-page agreement before the scope of work is added to it, my darling. So let me just tell you, and there's everything in there, you can even imagine. And I don't do that to kind of scare clients per se. I do that because I want to be open and transparent, and I don't want any question about how I run my business or what my expectations are of the client or what their expectations are of me. It is so clear cut and so easy to understand. But yes, that pivotal moment, and again, I really have never spoken about it in depth because it was still brought up a lot of pain within myself and mentally, and then with my husband and so forth. But we're here, and I can kind of giggle about it now, but I was not giggling then.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't want somebody who's never been through a serious business crisis to underestimate the weight of what that was, because you're through the actual hardcore pain of it. You know what I mean? Because, until you've been through a serious business crisis, it's hard to know how it really cuts you in your gut, right?
Yeah, and there's different levels.
Cuts you in your gut.
It does. And there's different levels, I feel, for people who maybe they didn't have a situation as drastic as that. Maybe it was just something that, was bothersome to them. So I'm not trying to negate it either. It was very, very horrible. And, it was also very, very great. I can be positive about it now. I've always
Mm-hmm.
been sort of a glass half full kind of person. And,
Mm.
once I got all that out of me and realized what I had done wrong, and here's the kicker. Here is the kicker of this. I really have now come full circle, and I can't even blame that client anymore. This was
Right.
all my fault. This
100%.
was
I
all
agree.
my fault. And everything that happened and every negative thing that occurred during that was me. So I take full
100%.
responsibility. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. I mean, look, I didn't even know all the gory details, but I know it was your fault. Like, it
Yeah,
was.
duh. Yeah, hello.
Because you're the one who's supposed to lead that transaction, whether
Yeah.
it's, a $10 transaction or a $2 million transaction. It's
Hmm.
yours to lead. It's yours as the design owner to lead that. And when we don't in our business, then it really is our fault. But I give you a lot of credit because that is a very monumental thing to go through and on all the levels,
Yeah.
and to really turn it into something so positive as I don't want that to go unnoticed or unrecognized either. And so, but I have a couple of questions about it, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Again, open book.
Okay. Just because I think getting into a tiny bit into the weeds on it
Sure.
will maybe prevent someone else from getting into the same spot. So the client gave you carte blanche to use their credit card. I trust you, just go ahead and do it. And was it one credit card month that, it went up to hundreds of thousands of dollars and then the clients went off the rails? Or was it multiple months? Like, why, what was the thing? Because it feels like it had to be multiple months. And so where was the surprise on the client's part?
Yeah, no, it was totally multiple months. It was charges would go through on 1 month. I guess that was fine. The next month that was fine. But let's just say it was a black card. There was no limits to this client's
Right.
finances. It was to the point where I would ride around with their driver, and it was that kind of a client. Very, very,
Yeah.
very, very wealthy.
So do you think it was maybe something where it's a client that's actually so wealthy that they're not even looking at their own credit card statements, and then maybe 6-7 months later somebody in their finance team comes and says, do you know you spent $500,000 so far on furniture or something like that?
Exactly what it was. So it was almost
Okay.
like this person was a company, a corporation that had all the
Yes.
red tape and all the processes behind it that it had to go through. And then by the time I think that the numbers hit the client's face, then that's when they were shocked about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because okay, that makes sense to me. And so that is something to be highly aware of if someone out there has the opportunity to work with somebody that ridiculously wealthy, to understand that that's the red flag there, that wealthy person, don't assume that because a statement went through and it got paid, that's tacit agreement. They're not even looking at their own darn bills, which of course I would have a whole problem with to begin with
Of
anyway, but
course. Yeah.
that's another story.
Well, but also too, LuAnn, like it was the fact of just I don't take credit cards now, frankly. The only part that I take credit cards for now are for my consultations or for like a designer on demand or designer for a day situation for smaller amounts. I don't
Good for
accept
you.
credit cards any longer. It's just part of my written contract. They understand that before we even work together. And I've spoken to other designers who were like, John, like, yes, I do take credit cards. And then here's what happened. After the project is done, the client cancels the transaction. And so it's
Yes.
refunded. And I'm like, no, that's horrible. So I'm not saying that, to never take credit cards but I can say this, it has worked for me for 13, 14 years now. And I won't take them for large purchases. I just won't. And it's just part of how I operate my company.
That's interesting because that conversation has never come up in any on-air or off-air conversation I've had with a designer. And I think I like that. I think I like that a lot. We're not, like you said, if somebody wants to put down, a $5,000 retainer for a designer for a day or to initiate a consultation. But when you go to say, okay, here is the invoice for $125,000 worth of furniture. No, that should probably actually be paid with an actual check that you can collect and it can't be debated.
Correct. So I only do checks, wire transfer, or they can pay with a bank transfer within our QuickBooks. That's it.
Yep.
And we have a great how we work document. So it's a 2-page document. No text messages, no working on the weekend, da 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 da. And also, we do not accept credit cards, and that's just it's understood from the get go. So I never have to reapproach the subject. It's very clearly spelled out. And it's in the how we work document. It's in the agreement. It's in the proposal that we do. Very straightforward. And it has saved me lots of headaches over the years. I will say that.
And for someone listening who's like, I could never get away with that. Do you have people in the beginning of the process of working with you when you're talking and doing the whole dance of the inquiry and are we going to work together that say, oh, I don't like that, I want to use a credit card? Like, is there ever any pushback, or is it just they maybe eyeballs rolls, but they don't, there has to be some people that are like, I want to be able to use a credit card. And you just say, not happening.
I just say our company policy is that we do not, and that is it. And if a client gets to the point of working with us, I've probably done everything in my power to keep them from not working with us. And I mean that because I lay out all the rules, I lay out all of how we work. And if they don't align, I tell them on the discovery call, and I tell them in the consultation, if there is no alignment, no chemistry, no synergy between us, then we won't move forward because, guess what? I'm going to be probably seeing your bra on the floor, and I'm going to be working inside of your home. And, we're going to be I'm going to find all kinds of things in the side cabinets of your dresser drawers. And I just want us to be able to be honest and straightforward with each other. And so if there is pushback, I just go back to that statement. This is our company policy. And I find that statement is more powerful than people give it credit for. I don't care if you're a solopreneur or if you have 25 people working for you. Your company policy is your company policy, and that is what you have to stand by.
I love it. And the thing is, I know that to be true as well. This is why I wanted you to explain it. But I know that to be true as well. When we are in the beginning stage, we are pre-signed contract. We can do and say whatever we want. It's our rules, our highway, all of the things. And that's, they can say, well, I will only work with someone who will accept credit cards. Great. There's the door.
Absolutely.
Right. But you can't wishy-washy on it. Well, this time, maybe not last time, now next time. That's where it falls apart. And I, now that I'm on 900 shows, John, between the two podcasts, I don't remember everybody's name who told me something anymore. It's really very disappointing because I used to have all the names at the top of my head. But somebody said to me on the show, and if you guys are listening and know, put it in the Instagram post for the show because it will bug me not to remember. But somebody said to me on the show in the last year, what if you acted as if you worked for the companies whose guidelines you are expressing? Right? So because you're the principal. So I'm talking to the designer out there that has a hard time when there's pushback and it's pre-contract. See, pushback after contract, that's a whole different scenario.
Yeah.
But pushback before contract, this is literally how it's going to go. You have come up with your reasons, your the whys that you're doing, the rules and the issues that you're putting out in your contract, and you've done it for good reason. So for you to back off of it just because somebody says, no, I don't want to do it that way. And when somebody said to me on the show recently was, pretend you work for yourself. You don't have the autonomy to just throw the contract out of the door because this customer, this client wants to use a credit card. Mm-hmm. Pretend you work for you. You wouldn't. You don't have the ability to do that. So I don't mean like you say it to the client, but mentally in your brain, just say, these are the rules of this company. These are the rules of this company.
It's as easy as that.
This is how we do it.
But the problem, I think, LuAnn, is this. I think a lot of people don't take the time to sit down and come up with the rules and the things that they stand for. It goes to that old saying, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for everything. And I feel like if you don't sit down, yes, you're excited about this project and, oh my God, it's a beautiful home and I'm going to do all of these great designs. But what do you as a business stand for? What do you, what values or what personal values do you have? What business values do you have? How does that affect how you run your company? Make a list of that. I tell everybody, make a list of your non-negotiables with your business and don't ever move from that. And, I even when I was one person, I always use the term we every single time. It's a little trick that I used. And And, there is a we to all of us, even if you are a solopreneur, you have tradespeople and accountants and so forth. And
We have
and,
15
my multiple
personalities that do
yeah,
all the jobs.
exactly. Those voices in my head, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's a whole party up there.
It is. It is. Yeah. Sometimes I'm invited. Sometimes I'm not, but it's okay. But you do have to spend the time working, on your business and figuring out exactly what things are important for you, and then write those down, put them on your website, tell everybody that you speak with, put them in your how you work document. Don't ever be afraid to tell people what your company means to you, and stand behind that. Because what I found was, once you start, and once you start wavering from your processes and the things that you value and the things that you do and the way you operate your company, you waver once, the whole trajectory goes off path, the train is derailed, and it's hard to get it back on track after that point.
Right. It's 100, I love it. I love it. You do have to take time really getting clear with who you are, what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and your non-negotiables.
Yep.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yep.
Okay. So, so in the end, the one last question about this whole situation.
Yes, I ran out of Kleenexes. I had no more Kleenexes.
Right? Oh, you poor thing. I just breaks my heart thinking of you in that car. It really does.
But I'm here.
But I'm glad that you stood up. I really am. In the end, when you show up for this delivery, getting to that delivery, was it like, because the client finally sees the bills, the client goes off the rails, but then the client is finally like, okay, I'm going to pay it all and I want it delivered. So was it just a hissy fit in the middle of it? And then the other secondary thing is, why and how did you get into a situation where the client was aware what your net costs were so that you had to only charge that, like that?
Yeah. Again, back to the,
I know that you've grown from this, and I know these are mistakes, but in explaining it, John, I think will help somebody who's like, oh, I just did that yesterday.
Yeah, right. Well, again, it comes back to the point that the reason this person wanted the products was because there were photos, and they were able to see exactly how beautiful all these pieces were, and they knew that they would work perfectly in their home. And again, I know a lot of designers are really good at design and not so great possibly at business, and that's where I was. So in the middle of that, yes, there were attorneys talking, and there was, one day my attorney even said, John, I think the best way to do this is if you were to call this client and you tell them, let's work this out without the attorneys. And I will tell you, LuAnn, I think that was the point where I was able to leave a voicemail for this person. And it really did turn things around, because I was like, let's figure this out. We both need to move on. Let's don't, keep bringing attorneys back and forth. You and I work this out as human beings. And that's what I feel was the turning point for that.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your second question again?
Well, the second question is why was the deal made to be at your net cost, and why isn't it just net plus 30 even, which isn't worth it, but still?
Yeah. So again, no agreement, no formal arrangement of how things were going to be priced. And here's a little tip too. The attorney that I was working with, because I was so desperate to find an attorney to get started, was not up to par on what designers, how we work, how we operate. Okay. Right. And so this attorney was a great attorney in a lot of aspects, because they were able to resolve the problem, but did not understand exactly how design firms operate. And for God's sake, I probably didn't either at the time. So
there's two of you in that boat.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly. So like literally the blind leading the blind, right? And so I think just to sort of expedite it and to keep the process from me accumulating more attorney's fees with them, and just keep things going, they asked me, are you able to just tell this person what you paid for this, and then we wrap this up? And at the time, of course, I said yes. I would never say that now. But that did teach me a transparency lesson, however. And so that's why I'm so transparent with my own clients now. And I let them know, if they want to see an invoice, I show them an invoice. They're never, ever, ever going to wonder going forward what I pay for something and what their price is for it. I don't hide anything, because as an industry, I don't think we're to the point of saying this is just the price, let's just take it, because clients were very savvy, as was this person. And so just to wrap it up and to get it behind us, we came up with this not so great financial agreement for myself, but it was a great mental agreement for like the mental stress relief for myself was worth it to sort of lose that money.
It was just cut your losses and move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you just said something in there that, I'm going to bristle at. Like, I mean, I'm interested to hear your perspective on it, because I do respect you as a business person, and I do know that you have made a 180-degree turn and you have many years of track record behind you now of running the firm the proper way. But I have not heard an argument yet or a position yet that makes me say, oh, okay, I think it's okay to tell people what your net cost is. So you have at it, try it.
I don't say that you come out of the gate saying, here's my net cost. You tell the client how you come up with the pricing for that product. So I have realigned my entire company based upon all of these years of experience, for instance. Mm-hmm. And so I charge a creative fee for our creative services. I don't care if they move on and ask us to purchase things and procurement. I don't even care. My creative services fee is enough to warrant me taking on that project. So that is that. And then from there, if I do ordering of product, procurement, all the things for them, I have a set way that I price my products with that client. We actually share. I share part of my discount. And I know that that's controversial as well, but I'm very straightforward with that. And it's only with certain vendors that we use. We're very explicit about how we come up with the pricing. It's not saying here, Mr. Client, I paid $100 for this. Here's the invoice on every single thing. But once they do approve it in the proposal, that product price is approved, and then we tack on what I call production. And I've sort of, after doing what you call the autopsy, I have figured out a percentage that I can actually tack on to that product order, and that covers shipping, that covers receiving, that covers warehouse, that covers delivery, all the things that's associated with the logistics of ordering that product. I don't say that you should always just come out and say exactly what you're paying for something, but if somebody asks you, I don't care to tell them, because it is what it is. And I don't think as an industry, we're to the point where we can just say this costs X amount of dollars without some sort of feedback from the client. I've had clients in, $10 million homes ask me those questions. And I've had clients in $500,000 homes ask me those questions. And I just don't think that I don't think as an industry, we've changed to the point of just saying, here's the price, take it, and without them possibly asking those questions. Now, I will say this, if you have found your ideal client, which I spend a lot of time preaching about in my own courses and with my own coaching students, is if once you find that ideal client, they're probably not going to question that anyway. They're probably not going to ask you. The problem comes when we take on every single person with a heartbeat as a client, and then we allow them to sort of run the show. But if you set out to find that right person, they're going to take your systems and your processes and your contracts and your agreements and how you run your business as at face value for the most part, and let you do your thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I buy into that. I definitely know that when we are aligned and we have, like you said a few moments earlier, taken the time to figure out who we are, what we do, how we do it, why we do it, the way we do it, and then express that, it does attract the people who value those things. And then there is a lot less of back and forth because everybody's like, I'm in the right spot. So I like that. And I agree with that. I guess, so let's go back to this little pricing structure that you've got then.
Let's do it.
So I noticed, John, first of all, you called it a creative fee, where I feel like, it probably is similar to what I've heard 1,000 times, but always everybody refers to it as the design fee. So you must be making a specific choice here. Talk to me about it.
Yes, absolutely. I sat down and I looked at all the different parts of my company, of revenue streams that we have, where we made money, where we lost money, every single thing. And I figured out that the part that was sort of overlooked by clients and potential clients was our creative services as a designer. So, doing all of the selections, doing all the CAD plans, coming up with the actual designs, we weren't putting as much focus and emphasis on that as I felt should have been done. And because we weren't doing it, the client wasn't valuing that either. So now I've sort of realigned all of that into very specific categories. And by saying just design fee and not giving any deliverables for that and not giving any sort of explanation of what you're bringing to the table, clients will make up their own things. And I have bullet points, literal bullet points on all proposals that we send out before. And by the way, I do a proposal before I do an agreement. I don't send out the entire 26-page agreement.
Right.
They have a lovely little proposal that has all the numbers in there, all of the things that I want them to understand. But in that, I list out exactly what they're getting for every single service type that we offer. And let me just tell you this, when I sat down and wrote those out, I was astonished myself at exactly how much we do. If so many people, we just all as designers do it so naturally. And, we go out and we pick this up and we order that and we checked on this order and we work, this was received damaged and all the things that we do on a daily basis. Once you list that stuff out, it is a freaking lot of things that you do. It's a huge list. And that has value for it as a designer and as a business person. And I just let my clients know, here's what you get for the creative services. Here's what you get. I don't call it project management. I do not manage projects. I do project fulfillment. And I let them know exactly what they're going to get for our project fulfillment services. And then the production services, which are separate from any sort of profit I make from product. The production services is the logistical management of all of the products that we order for them. So it's basically three major categories: creative, project fulfillment, and then production, and then procurement, markup, and that sort of thing is different from all of that.
Okay, so do you mind if we get in the weeds on some of these actual fees and what you charge, or you don't feel?
Oh, no. I'll tell you everything.
Okay,
yeah. No. I'll tell you everything.
Okay, so creative fee, it is to some extent relatable to the design fee that we hear talked about all the time, to some extent, right? But when you are describing it, you're saying specifically what the deliverables are in the creative fee is the differentiator, are you saying?
Yeah, I'm just letting them know that the part that clients tend to just brush off and get ready to say, okay, yes, we're ready to, swing the hammers on your project and we're ready to do demo. All of that work before then is sometimes overlooked, and clients just want us to be facilitators of the design plan. I'm just putting the focus back on the creative part of what we do, which again could be called design fee, but I feel that so many designers just say design fee and they never list out exactly what that entails. Right. I'm just trying to let them know, here's exactly what goes on during the creative part. And we are creatives. That's what we do. We're hired to be. I'm not hired to necessarily order all of your products. And again, I don't care if they move forward with ordering products from us or not. Doesn't matter to me. I have made enough profit from my creative services. And by the way, I upped those creative services a lot once I really did realize what we were doing for the client and the part that weren't being valued. So yeah, it is a very specific part of what we do.
And I like calling it creative fee because it does imply that this is a skill set that I have that you don't.
Thank
Otherwise,
you.
Why would you be here?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting. And then when you say project fulfillment, how is that different from project management? What is it? What are the differences in your mind?
As designers, we are hired to bring the project to fulfillment. We are hired to make sure that design intent was followed through from beginning to end. I'm not hired to make sure that Larry doesn't show up and install the tile because can't install it because he's drunk. I'm not hired to make sure that this person didn't leave the job site today. So I actually require that our clients sign directly with the GC, the general contractor, the tradesperson, whomever, because I don't want to be responsible for that. And I know there's some gray areas about, okay, you made the selections and you could be responsible for it. But I'm just saying the day-to-day operations of the job site are not my responsibility. And I've done it over the years where they were my responsibility, and it was just more headache than any sort of financial gain that I was receiving from it. So project fulfillment and I do that as so I do a flat fee creative fee. I do a flat fee project fulfillment fee. And I know everyone's probably shaking in their boots, like, oh my God, I could never do a flat fee for, what they call project management or what John calls project fulfillment. But you can, if you just list out the deliverables for what you're bringing to them for the project fulfillment, how many job site visits you're going to do, how many phone calls you're going to be able to do, how many emails, I set mine up like unlimited emails, unlimited phone calls, and I do specific job site visits at critical points in the process. So if it's a decorating project, then of course there are less. If it is a full, new construction, renovation, I set those deliverables up ahead of time so that we know when we're going to be going to the job site. And then anything after that point, I charge hourly for, and I let the client know that as well.
Okay. So with this, I'm hearing the distinction. You're not showing up. You're not saying, "Oh, hi, Sally Smith. On Tuesday, Bob the plumber is coming, to put the rough in." You're not involved in that. There's a GC and somebody else is handling all of that. But when it's Thursday and, Joe the Tyler's coming in, you're not handling that either. But that says to me, you are probably delivering a very specific, high level design book, so that if you go to the job site on the 5th week, but tile has been going in bathrooms and kitchens all during that month, you're not going to walk in and find the herringbone going the wrong way. And if you do, you're going to have the proof that it's not your problem. You're not your fault. Is that a valid statement?
Pretty close. Yeah. We have critical points. So for instance, tile, one of our rules is that anytime tile is being installed, we are required that one of my team members is on the job site to make sure that it's installed in the correct way. So that's a critical point, right?
Okay.
This isn't to say, by the way, that we're not FaceTiming with the general contractor, that we're not, emailing and texting with that general contractor. We are. So we're just limiting those, because that takes very little time. Think about it. So a 60-second phone call versus driving out to a project and then reviewing it, that's totally different. The other thing that kind of sticks in my craw a little bit about this project management thing is that legally, as you know, in certain states, you can't even do that. And so many designers, I feel, are going to like wake up one day and realize like, this isn't legally something that you can say that you do in some states. And I just wish other people would understand, the legalities behind that, the fact that they're setting themselves up for some kind of possible bad outcome if they do call themselves the project manager. But we're in constant contact with them. We're working things out. We're making sure that, if this needs to be moved this direction. And I also, by the way, I work in a certain number of visits that are just sort of like bonus visits, so to speak. So I have 3 to 5 visits that are as needed if there's a situation happening that we do need to be there for. So I don't just say, client, you have 6 visits, that's it. No, these are our points that we have found in our experience that we need to be on the job site for. But these are the other times when we know that things could arise and that we will need to possibly be on the job site for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you are figuring out the flat fee for the creative or the flat fee for the project fulfillment, what are you basing that on? Are you basing it on square footage? Are you basing it on past data for number of hours on other projects? Like, where are you coming up with that flat fee number?
Here we go into the fee conversation. Yes, I have a very, very distinct way of doing that. I have tried everything under the sun over the years to try to figure out how to price our services. And it all boils down to this. I created this little calculator that I use, and it's nothing complicated, but it's very effective. And when we do the consultation with the client, we come up with a scope of work, of course, and that scope of work is super detailed. And it's sort of like pie in the sky. This is if you could do everything with your project, this is what you'd want to do. This is what we would do. So that scope of work is what I use to base my fees on. So if we're choosing, 2 coffee tables and 4 sofas and, all the things, I put that in there, and each one of those has a time amount assigned to it. And it's just a click and play kind of a spreadsheet that I use. But when we're done, it comes up with the flat fee. And then I sort of multiply that by 1.2 because I know that there's things that happen along the way that could affect that rate. And I know that as designers, we tend to undervalue and underprice our services. So I do have a very distinct way of doing that, and I realize that you can't avoid the specifics of a project. There is no even with flat fee. I'm sorry, even with square foot, there is no way to come up with a definitive answer without looking at the details of a project. So I just
Right.
kind of take it all back down to the simplicity of it, and literally analyze everything that we're doing. If we're moving a wall, if we're, I have an hourly total if we're redesigning an entire kitchen, or if we're just sort of updating it, that comes with an allotment of time. And it is based on past projects. My poor admin and we analyzed these projects to death, like beat them to death, and looked at every single number, every single amount of time that we spent on a project. And funny enough, across the board, even with the bigger ones and the smaller ones, there was a consensus of time and investment of money that was consistent across all of them, and that became the basis of how I come up with my flat fee.
Okay, I love that you do it based on your past data. And so just so I'm clear, because I'm not sure I am, you're saying that if there are, going to be 4 sofas in the place and 16 area rugs, you've assigned based on past analyzation that it generally takes you 3 hours to source an area rug and 4 hours to source a sofa. So you just click, 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 times. It just becomes a calculator.
It does, but also with that, I do allow a little buffer in case there are some things that change along the way.
Right.
But the way, you can't just do this, by the way. You can't just go in and say, oh, I think it will take me an hour to do this. And I
Right.
think, I am basing it on factual data that is able to be backed up from project to project to project. And that is what I encourage everyone else to do, is to sort of do that autopsy of their project, this project review, that they can find out exactly how long it did take them to do certain things. Because listen, and by the way, I don't alter these the faster we get. Like, some projects are quicker, some are not. Nope, the number is the number.
Right.
And that is what it is, because as we get more experience, of course, we're going to be quicker and faster at things. But it doesn't mean that we should lower that time, that value of finding that. You're still really good at what you do. Just because you do it in 30 minutes instead of an hour, that doesn't mean you should charge for 30 minutes of that time. That's how I see it. And
Right.
that's why flat fee has sort of changed the way we make profit from our company.
Okay. But I was mostly just double checking that I understood the concept properly, that
Yeah.
you've attached hours to every type of selection or every type of thing that you like. When you are moving a wall in a room, this generally is going to take 12 hours to figure it out from beginning to end. Like, that's what you did.
Yep.
And then,
That's it.
okay. And I like it. And the thing about it is, to your point, okay, so this time it might take you an hour to pick a sofa instead of 2 hours, but it might take you 14 hours on that wall instead of 12. It's getting it to what's actually doable and realistic. And sometimes it'll be faster and sometimes it'll be slower. And if every darn thing on this particular project is going to be slower, you're accounting for that in the 1.2 times.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Love
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I didn't just pull these out of air. Of course, I based them on
Yes,
past
that's the
projects,
thing.
but also I verified, LuAnn, that they actually work. So now that we've had this
Yes.
method in place, I've gone back and done other analysis of it and verified that, yes, this is profitable. Yes, we were spot on with that amount of time that it
Right.
would take for that. And the other thing too, I used to be the only person who would come up with pricing for all of our contracts and proposals and so forth. Now my team can actually take that
Oh,
spreadsheet that I've
see.
done, and I can let
Yes.
them do that, and I just do a quick little review of it, and they give
Verify it.
me
Right.
the contract price that we're going to present to the client.
I love it. I mean, and the thing about it is, and I'm so glad you mentioned that you're continuously double checking and confirming it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so funny because years ago I was working with a designer one on one, and I won't use her name, but hi, and I love this lady, she's such a great lady, and we were having a conversation about a project that she was going to price for out of state, and we were reviewing how is she going to come up with this proposal. And it was one of those situations where you want the job, right? So when you don't really care, you throw spaghetti at the wall, you put the number that you want and you let it go. But she wanted the job and she wanted to do it, and so we were trying to thoughtfully come up with a way to quote the design part of the job, right? The creative part of it, that made sense. And so I had her do the exercise. I'm like, well, what are all the different rooms? What do you have to select in each room? And, go back in between now and our next session, put hours to every single one of these rooms. And it was so funny because, if she's listening, she'll remember the one room she put, I want to say 3 hours. It was 2 or 3 hours. Maybe it was 5, right? And I said, well, how are we only like 3 or 5 hours in this room? And she said, oh, because the only thing we have to do in this room is window treatments. And I just looked at her. I said, oh, okay. So, all right, this is my wheelhouse, sweetie. Let's go. All right, we're going to first measure the windows, and we're going to have a conversation about the needs for the windows, the style, and the function. I said, there's 1 hour right there. I said, now we're going to go and source fabrics and shades. I said that could be 1 to 5 hours, depending on, what type of fabrics, and then I said to her, and we're going to look at the 5-hour side, because you're not starting at a blank slate. You're starting with matching new window treatments to existing rugs and furniture, right? I said, and then you have to come up with a proposal. You have to go get it priced by a window treatment company. You have to evaluate it. You have to create a proposal for it. I said, so there's another hour, half hour on each end. I said, and then you have to hire somebody out of state to install this for you. And, you got to make sure that they're going to do the job right. So you're probably going to be on site for this. I said, so I'm at 10 hours and everything went fine. Right. You know what I mean? And it was just, the thing about it was, it just illuminated to her how typical it is for us, each of us, not just interior designers, that when we do something and we do it so often, like the back of our hand, we actually forget how much goes into it. Because I didn't even get to the ordering it, like making the work orders out, the checking the status on it, checking, getting all the fabrics ordered and making sure they're there. I was like, you're 10 to 12 hours for a window treatment. Don't put 3. Like, that's nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that is a very typical thing that we do, that we undervalue what our intellectual property is that goes into the things that we do because we love doing them.
Well, and
right?
also and to that point, I feel like we don't ever, again, spend the time to figure out what we do during that process, right? Like
100%.
I know we're so ingrained in what we do every day with our clients and like, oh, this meeting and that presentation, but just, if you would just pull back and really, as you said, think about all of those steps. Like, oh my goodness, I have a team member. She's amazing, but she also is very quick. And she's like, oh yeah, that'll take me, an hour. And I'm like, yeah, that'll take you an hour to choose that. But ordering the fabric, again, talking to the workroom, worrying about, was it received damage? Is it ready? All those things, that is part of what I am responsible for, reminding my team that we have to be accountable for all of those steps. And there was a gazillion steps in what we do every day. Sometimes I get overwhelmed. I'm like, wow, do we really do that much every day?
I know.
And we do,
Yes, it's true. And the thing for me in that conversation was, whether it was 10 hours applied to one room, 20 hours to another, I didn't have the perspective to know if, like you just said, like your one designer saying it's an hour, but it's an hour to source it, but it's another hour to process it, pay for it, to check the status on it, see if it's ready for delivery. That's another 3 hours, right? So when she was laying out 10 hours here, 20 hours there, I'm not in the weeds. I don't know all the steps. But when we came to the window drum, I was like, no, see, this I do know. And that's when I was like, now go back and do all the other rooms again, because now we came up with what she really expected it to be. And that is exactly what you are saying, is you have to spend the time in doing these things. And then, to your point, I love it. So if you have a project and you allotted 20 hours for this and 3 hours of that and 5 hours, track that time during that project. You're not going to give it to the client, but you track it internally. And then part of your autopsy, when the job is done, is you go back and say, oh, we allotted 12 hours for this kitchen refresh. Did we do 12 hours? Oh, hell, we did 28. Like, what the heck happened here? And then what gets revealed is, was 28 necessary? In which case, for the next project, it has to be adjusted. Or was there wheels spun and, inefficiencies that you have to now come out and figure out what the
I'm
problem was?
nodding my
But
head so hard right now. Yes, exactly.
right,
Exactly.
right.
That's
Yeah, I
it.
love it.
That's it. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to be exactly the same from project to project, but if you do just spend the time to figure out what it takes, you can at least have some sort of data to start that process. And I encourage every single person out there to analyze their business, analyze their data. What is your profit margin? How much time are you spending on every project? Because it can be eye opening sometime. And also, let me just mention this: I'm flat fee, but we still track every single blip an hour that we do for every
Good for you.
project. From admin time to procurement to ordering to client visits, all the things are tracked, and that's
Oh, I
essential
love
as
it.
well.
It's the only way to do
Only
it.
way.
So here's the thing. This leads us into you have created many online courses for designers based on all of these hard-earned lessons of yours. So tell us a little bit about what you have created that designers can take advantage of, John.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited. So all of my mistakes are now documented in courses, and all of my successes are as well.
Live in infamy forever and ever.
I think you've already seen that I'm kind of an open book, warts and all. I just have learned that common sense is the way to run your life and to run your business. And so I created, after I wrote my book, The Designer Within, which I'll tell you about in a minute. I
Yeah.
decided to do some courses for designers who were always DMing me, and I had questions being asked repeatedly. And I just felt like a lot of people were in that same boat, that not literally, probably, I hope, but somewhat similar situation that I had been in over the years. And I wanted to share that knowledge with people. And I just really sat down, and all the work that I had done, I put that together in various courses. People can choose them a la carte. So there's marketing courses. I have all of my agreements are actually in there. People can, use those agreements as a basis and adapt them for their own companies. I have all of my systems and processes, which, again, once I assimilated those all together, I was like, holy moly, there's a lot, because it's every single step that we do, from the minute a client calls us until the minute we send out, the thank you gift at the end. It's every single step in there. And not to say that everybody has to follow that, but I can say this. I can say that these steps that I have incorporated within my company, they really do work for us. And I use my own company as guinea pigs. We are the experimental prototype for everything before I put it out into the world. And I know for a fact that not only do these make our daily job easier, but they make my company much more profitable. And people can buy them individually as an individual course, or they can choose them as what I call the Designer Within Business Academy, which is everything inclusive, as well as some one-on-one coaching calls with me to answer specific questions. But the reaction's been great. I just approach everything as very naturally as sharing information, as wanting to better our industry and to sort of bring us to a new level as interior designers, and for people to really understand that we are professionals. We're not doing this as hobbies. We're here to make a living. Yeah, we're good at it. Yeah, we enjoy what we do, but we also have to make money. We're not a nonprofit. And I want to be an advocate for other designers out in the world to really stand up for themselves, and to have a company philosophy, have a company vision, have a company backbone that they can stand behind, so that they're not just letting a client run the show. They do have their own sets of values and processes that they can enforce with clients that do work.
I love it. I love it. I think it's amazing. And so how do they access these courses, John?
So it is the designerwithin.co, not .com, but .co. And make sure you put the in there. And then also from my website, johnmcclaindesign.com, you can find it as well. But yeah, they're all on there. There's a description about them if anybody wants to ask me questions about it. Again, I'm an open book. I share everything. And I love it too, because as you know, things are adapting as people's needs are adapting. And so if I have a social media course, which I do, I adapt it and revise it based upon things that I'm learning, and I'm constantly learning. I even changed my title of my company within my company to CEO and creative director, because I'm
Love
not
it.
as ingrained in the design projects as I was. Yes, higher level,
Mm.
of course, but I wanted to be able to run my company and to lead my team and to lead our clients in a way that I was not encumbered by all of the weeds, and I was able to see things from a 30,000-foot view versus like
Mm.
down low. And it has changed everything about how we operate ever since I sort of made that mental shift within myself.
I love it. I think it's great. I'm so happy for you. I really am. I'm so happy that you had the clarity of the lessons and then you're able to put them in a format that can help other designers, access this information and really just chunk by chunk, like you said, take the parts that you want, things you're struggling with, or take the whole thing with the whole academy. I love it. And we have to talk about this book. I mean, it's so
Thank you.
beautiful. It's so beautiful. I have my copy here in front of me. It's called The Designer Within, and it's a professional guide to a well styled home. And this book is written to the consumer.
Yeah.
Right. And it's about the story. I mean, designers will love it, by the way, because designers, I mean, it's just like who watches all the design shows? The designers.
Right.
Right. Um, but I mean, I love that you talk about your grandfather and you go through your childhood and your upbringing and everything that influences. So tell us a little bit about the writing of the book and what your feelings are on it.
I mean, I feel like most designers have this dream of writing a book and of having this sort of accomplishment done. And I did as well. But I'll tell you, it was innocently said to my husband. I was like, I think I want to do a book now. I think I want to write a book. And he was like, all right, let's do this. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And so he just started contacting publishers and getting information about them and who to send ideas to. And then I came up with a sample chapter and how to what I saw the book, what vision I had for the book, and what I really wanted to accomplish with it. And it resonated with people, and it resonated with one specific. Gibbs Smith is my publisher. They're fantastic. Shout out to them. And they were really able to let me embrace my vision for the book. And I wrote the book, LuAnn, to my 12-year-old self, if you want to be if I want to be
Aw.
completely honest, because I was this kid in a small town that loved beautiful things, and I love watching all the old, like this old house. Like that's how old I was watching. That's how long I was watching these TV shows, like not
Right.
the HGTV ones. And so I wrote it to myself, and I wanted to be able to sort of bridge that gap between people who really deserve a beautiful home but may not have the means to hire a designer, like my family did not at the time. And I don't want to ever be this untouchable designer that the public can't ask questions to, or maybe they can take 4 or 5 components from the book or from a project that we have in the book and apply that to their own home. So I wanted lots of takeaways from it for people, but I also wanted it to be a beautiful book. And, it is,
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on choosing the projects for the book. It took about 2 years to totally put the book together. And part of that was pandemic, and part of that was just me rewriting things a million times. And I wrote the book myself, which my publisher was kind of shocked about, but I really enjoyed it, and the writing process of it. And we sat on about 5 projects, because you can't publish them out into the world, right, as you're doing a book. So
Hmm.
we sat on about 5 beautiful projects that were eating at me, that I wanted to tell people about on social media, but I couldn't because they were going to be in the book. So the book is it has 240 something pages, and over 200 images. And, it's sort of my heart on my sleeve to the world as a designer
Mm.
and as a human being. I want to take down that wall that designers are, that we can't be reached, and that we are just these elusive people that are designing only multi-million-dollar homes. Yes, I have those in the book, but you know what? I also have a small, beautiful condo that we did. I have other little projects that we have in the book that aren't multi-million-dollar projects.
Hmm.
And again, it's just accessibility for for the world. I was so detailed on this book, LuAnn, you'll love this. They sent me back the cover of the hardcover of the book about 4 different times for different colors, and I kept revising the gray that I wanted under the jacket because I always take the jacket off of books when I put them on clients' shelves.
Oh, isn't that
yeah,
funny?
And I wanted designers to be able to have this gray that would work with almost every room that they had, and so I went through about 4 iterations of the color of the hardcover of the book underneath the jacket.
Gosh.
Yeah, crazy.
And the publisher's probably like, dude,
Stop.
It has a cover on it.
Exactly.
And you're like, but we're not going to keep the cover on it. Which is kind of a sin because the cover photos are beautiful too.
Well, funny you say that. I've had a few designers say, actually, yours is not obtrusive to any design style that I'm working on for our clients. So I'm going to leave the jacket on. And I'm like, all right, perfect. Point taken.
Right? Oh my goodness. Well, I loved reading through it. I love that, putting the hat on as a regular consumer, you achieved what you wanted to achieve. It did not feel intimidating. It felt like I was looking clearly at beautifully designed rooms, but that you were showing me and telling me, why you made selections and what you did. And then I could turn around and think about how I might translate that for me. You know what I'm saying? It's like you really did take the wall down. I did not feel like it was looking at something that I could never imagine for myself, even though technically I can't imagine any of this for myself. Do you know what I'm saying?
No,
I'm not going to live in a house like this.
and you just boiled it down to exactly what I wanted. I dedicated the book to my grandfather. He could not read or write, LuAnn, but he literally was the smartest person on the entire planet that I've ever met. And he was this sort of catalyst for me my family built homes, and he was this catalyst for me to jump into the design world and to really take it further. And, it's he couldn't read or write, but I feel like he actually did write a book now because he was such a big part of this one.
That's awesome. And the book, where do we get the book?
Everywhere books are sold. I love saying that. That sounds great. So yeah, any bookstore, Amazon. If you want a signed copy, you can get that from the same website, thedesignerwithin.co, and I can send out a signed copy if you'd like. But it's out there and it's doing well. And thanks for everyone who's purchased it so far. And I hope that the takeaway that you just said is what everyone takes away from it. And really, I want to just put my heart out there and for everyone to understand not only why we did it, but the reason behind it for design wise, but the reason behind it from like a psychological and heartfelt perspective too.
Well, you know this because we didn't talk about it, but our listeners don't know this. I didn't know, like you didn't tell me that was your intention on the book.
No.
That was what I got.
I love that.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so listening to you say, well, this was my intention, blah, 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 I was like, wow, that was you achieved exactly what you wanted to achieve. And that's a particularly powerful thing, John, that you were able to translate a feeling and a point of view in print and pictures and in such a magnificent way, really. And so congratulations in all the ways and all the things, because it's really a major accomplishment. And I really just high five to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like you get to a point in life where you have learned a lot and you just want to start sharing that with people, and you just don't. I want the entire industry to be an open book, and I want us to talk about what our hourly fees are and what our flat fees are and how we charge for projects. And I just want us to be more communicative with each other and over communicate. We over communicate with our clients. I wish as an industry we would also do that too, and just share information, not only between our peers, but also with the world. And I feel like with my book and with my courses, that's what I'm trying to do. And it feels good. I feel it feels at home. I feel so at peace with where I am now in my business and my life. And I'm just ready to, share that love and that knowledge with the world.
That's awesome.
As cheesy as that sounds. Awesome. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's the truth.
No.
It's the truth.
No, I spend time with my cousin Eileen. This is how she talks every day. I just want people to feel joy, to be happy in what they do, and everybody deserves it. It's 100% true. And when you find it, it's a very, very powerful feeling. And so I'm so glad for you that you found it.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for letting me share it with everybody. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you so much for being on the show again. I am looking forward to seeing you, whether it's Vegas or Cabus or High Point or wherever. But I can't wait to see you again. Thank you for coming on today, John.
Can't wait. Big hugs coming your way when I see you. Warning.
Thank you. Okay, what a great conversation. I see John from time to time at High Point and other events, but to have this time, this one-on-one uninterrupted hour with him is special. It is always for any of you that I get to have this time with. You know what happens is you just learn the things that you don't learn over a cocktail, right? And I had not heard this story of John's before. And the thing what we know is everyone doesn't. It's not a requirement. You don't have to hit rock bottom in order to find your success. But when it does happen that you hit that rock bottom moment, it takes real grit to get up and go again. And that's what I like about John. Can you imagine going through all of that? The confusion, the distress, the screaming client, the declined credit cards, then the fire at the furniture factory, and then finally having to deliver with an armed guard? Come on. That's a level of, like I said, when you tell the story in hindsight, it's all sort of like, oh, and then that happened and that happened. But when you place yourself in those moments, those are very, very difficult moments. Okay. And I will tell you, I mentioned it on the show. If this is the type of thing that you need in order to understand that it's your turn to get up and get going again, or that you just have to be reminded that it doesn't just happen to you, it happens to all of us, then I definitely highly suggest that you check out Sandra Funk's episode number 145. Now, she was on the show just a week or so ago and talking about her interior design standard and her philosophy on how and when to apologize. But in episode 145, she explained her hard lesson and how she came out of it. And teaser, the interior design standard was the result of that experience for her. Okay. So the thing with John is, a misstep early in his career became the catalyst for change. Without this big misstep, he might not ever have gone on to the level that he is at today, and probably definitely not as rapidly as he has gotten there, right? This mistake, as sad as it makes me to picture John in the middle of it, so upset, was necessary. It was the kick in the pants. And in the end, it turned out to be a gift because it is what compelled him to examine his business and, more importantly, his business practices. And boy, oh boy, has he done that. Right? So the thing is, without this huge event, he might have gone on 8, 10, 15, 20 years, one step forward, one step back, one step forward, one step back. So if you've had the big come to Jesus moment like this, the dark night of the soul, look at it as the gift that it is, as long as you turn it into that gift, right? Now, I am intrigued about two of his practices, the fact that John does not take any credit cards and that he calls out his first service for the client as a creative fee, all right? And the thing is, what intrigues me and what matters to me more than these actual individual decisions is that he arrived at them by analyzing past and current projects and then taking it to the confidence to decide and create policy on what works for him and his business. Right? So whether you decide to call it a creative fee or a different fee, whether you take a credit card or you don't, I'm more impressed when you make those decisions based on the hard facts of your own business, as opposed to, I was at a panel discussion and somebody said to blah, 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 right? Because this is key in our business, that we make these critical decisions. At Exciting Windows, the other company that Vinny and I own, our tagline is build a better business. And the point that we mean when we say that is that you get to decide what is better. What is better for you, your world, your dreams, your life? Okay? So thinking about that, all right? And it leads into John's little discussion about his non-negotiables. All right. And the thing about non-negotiables are they're different for all of us. We're each different people. But his reminder of how important they are to consider and to live by is what I want you to take out of it. As he said to us, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And if that hits you, then maybe it's time to take a minute, grab your notebook and jot down some of your non-negotiables. All right. And if that doesn't come easy, write down the things that you will negotiate on. Right? If you're a longtime listener of the show, you know this is my version of know what you will do and what you will not do before you are in the tough situation. This makes all the difference in the world. Thinking about what matters to you, what is like a non-negotiable to you. I will not do this. For him now, one of those is he will not take credit cards. So what happens is when somebody's interested and wants to do something like, oh, but I really want you to do it. He's like, no, it's a non-negotiable. Like he's not in the moment on his feet dancing around it. He's already given it careful consideration. And that's always what I mean when I say know what you will do and know what you will not do. And it's to his point, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything because then everything is on the table. You can be talked in or out of anything if you don't have your own mindset first, right? So if you want to see more of John's designs and his design philosophies, please go get his book, The Designer Within. It is absolutely beautiful. A lot of great advice for both homeowners and, like I said, for you as an interior designer as well. You can get it anywhere books are sold, but if you want that signed copy, and that's fun to have, right? Go to John's website, thedesignerwithin.co. All right. And of course, look into his coaching. It's clear he is speaking and teaching from well-earned experience. He knows what you're going through, and he knows how to help you get through it, right? This is like getting that, pass go card and collecting the $200 right away. You don't have to make your way all the way around the board. You can talk to somebody who's been there and has the solid advice on how to get through. All right. So thank you, John, so much for coming on the show with me and sharing your story. I just love our conversations. So much fun and just a kind soul. And it comes through in the conversation. And I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate you for showing up today. I appreciate you for paying attention to this show, for leaving the reviews on iTunes and iHeart and all of the places, and showing up to the live events and introducing yourself to me. It is just such a joy. This community that we have created together. Thank you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.